Hi, everybody. Welcome to the July 21st, not the May 19th, 2023 Host Strategic Advisors meeting. I hope everybody's having a good summer. We're going to get started here. So we're going to go through our agenda. We've got our land acknowledgement, our advisors round robin, where we can share what's going on in our communities, executive directors updates. We're going to hear from the Affordable Housing Review team today, which I'm excited about. Talk about the action plan for 2024 and wrap up. You want to go to the next slide? Unless anyone, here we go. Okay. Thanks. I'd like to make the land acknowledgement for the strategic advisors. It's the Denver Housing Stability Strategic Advisors honors and acknowledges that the land on which we reside is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. We honor elders past, present, and future, and those who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We also recognize that government, academic, and cultural institutions were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequalities and recognize the current and future contributions of Indigenous communities in Denver. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Sabrina. Sabrina, those of us on Zoom can't hear you if you are talking.
She just needs to unmute.
Sabrina? Sabrina, would you like me to do the roll call for those who are on Zoom? Can the others on Zoom hear me?
Go ahead.
I can hear you, Jenny, but nobody else.
Yeah, me neither.
I'm unmuted. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you have an echo, but we can't hear you.
Chris, can you try to?
And everybody else should be unmuted.
Yes. We're getting rusty.
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. Doing these hybrid meetings is a whole new thing for us. Okay, so roll call, we'll ask for Quika Montoya,
Here.
Jenny Rogers,
Here.
Myra Gonzalez,
Here.
Thomas Allen, Daryl Watson. Oh, Daryl's not on anymore. Sorry. Josh Capel, Kristen Toombs, Melanie Lewis Dickerson.
Here.
Sorry, Kristen Toombs. Kristen Toombs is here. I couldn't get off mute fast enough.
Thank you.
And
Thank
so
you.
is
Sorry about
Thomas, by the way. Thomas is on.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I am here.
Great, thank you. And Randy Kilborn, Mark Marshall,
Here.
and Jamie Wright.
Here.
Wonderful. Sorry, you guys, I think we're getting this going.
No worries. Okay, we're going to open it up for public comment. I don't know if we have any members of the public on the line, but if you would like to make any comments, you can unmute yourself. Please state your first and last name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone who would like to make a comment? Host staff, can you tell if we have anyone else on the line besides ourselves? Or anyone in the room?
I don't think we have any members of the public right now.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. Move on. Next, we need to move to approve the May 19 minutes. So hopefully all of you had a chance to review these and take a look. Do we have a motion to approve the May 19th, 2023 meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve the May 19th, 2023 minutes. And this is Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie. Do we have a second?
Quickest seconds.
Quika seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, we've approved the May 19th, 2023 meeting minutes. Thank you all. So next we have our advisors round robin. Is there anybody who would like to share anything that your organization's been doing, feedback or housing needs, other comments from the communities that you work with, anything that you're hearing out and about? This is our place to share with host and each other. Anybody?
I'm sorry, thank you. At the last meeting, I brought up the needs of the disability community to have more housing that's accessible. And I was talking to some friends and we were talking about maybe doing a survey that I could give to the people at Atlantis and the people at Colorado Cross Disability Coalition to kind of try to get some data to find out exactly what that need is. And that's something I could work on developing and share it with Jenny or Laura or somebody and see if you approve of it, and then share it with those communities if it's something that you think that would help.
Sure, maybe we can talk a little bit with you as a follow-up to this, just about what data you would expect to seek to collect from something like that and the mechanisms for collection as a follow-up item to keep that conversation moving forward. I think one of the things from the last meeting was also best practice information and research, but we can take this as another item to connect with you on that survey.
Yeah.
Just to make sure we're clear on kind of stop for data points and how we best collaborate on that.
Okay, that would be great.
Probably someone in our data team that would be best able to hearing with Randy on that, Joe. Just if we want to follow up with making that segment.
And something else that we've talked about that I thought we could, as a group, could look into maybe in the future is a concept that Seattle is using called social housing. As far as I can recall, I don't think we've ever approached that in any of our meetings, but it sounded like a really great option and something that could work here.
Yeah, thanks for flagging that, Randy. Can folks hear me if okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you, Jennifer, nodding your head. Social housing as a term often is used to describe the government entity being the developer, owner, and operator of housing that is built and affordable. I want to just acknowledge a local constraint that we have here in Colorado around a city's ability to step into this space in an owner and operator role. We have a state statute that requires that if a city or a municipality or jurisdiction is to own housing, it must be operated with the local housing authority. So it's possible for a city to own affordable housing, but it requires that the Denver Housing Authority is in an operating role. So that's a local context that we have that might be different than other states that have the ability to be both an owner and an operator. So as we think about the role of government in the housing landscape, that's a big reason why we partner with nonprofit and other developers to actually own and operate, is because the city has a limitation in their social housing model of actually being operated. So if there's more information that we can provide on that, happy to take that back to the team if we wanted to have a future dialogue around how other cities are doing it. I just want to give you that context about.
Okay. One of the things I really liked about it and the research I did was that it's governed by an elected board of residents. And I really think that that's important, which is something that DHA does not do. They have one person on their board, which doesn't really give much representation.
One thing that I'd be able to follow up on is, I know they also have a resident advisory body as a complement to their formal board, and I know you serve on DHA's boards, you probably can speak to this in other ways, but that may be helpful to, as a follow-up, give you all a little bit more context on the resident advisory board as a complement to the DHA board. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and this social housing model does seem to be coming up as something people are curious about. So maybe there is a way to provide some more information about what other cities are doing, but it sounds like, Randy, we would have to go and make some changes at the legislative level to implement that model here in Colorado.
I wondered about that, if that was something that we as a committee or host or someone in the city could lobby the state government to try to make that change to allow something like this, like a social housing model. As a matter of fact, when I was reading about Seattle, that's what they had to do because they had a similar constraint. I don't know if it was the exact same, but
Yeah, I think from a policy perspective, my first question in the exploration is, what does social housing give that other models of housing development that we may have right now or in partnerships with DHA? What does a social model give that we don't get from the current state? And if the exploration of that resulted in a reason that social housing would be a better path forward to address our housing goals, then yes, there would need to be conversation around state level changes. But I think that first conversation around the policy approach that we have now is informing the exploration of social housing is probably the first step in my mind before thinking about whether to have a broader state conversation on that. So maybe that's something we can talk a little bit more with our team about as a recommendation for how to address, and that may, I just want to be transparent, that may result in a recommendation that that's not something we have in the past on right now, given the wider context, but we can take that policy conversation back to our team and have that discussion.
thank you.
I see Melanie's hand up and then Chris.
Speak, but if not.
You're just echoing.
Oh, okay, sorry, this is Mayor Gonzalez. I attended the mayoral inauguration. Congratulations to the city, we have a new mayor. But as we were leaving, there were protesters outside the roadway in. Seems to be the issue top of mind for folks, especially because of the displacement that folks are feeling is going to happen. And so I wanted to bring that up as a topic of conversation. I know we spoke about it months ago when it was announced that it would be closing in August. And I don't know if there are some next steps, what's going to happen to those folks. Are they being relocated, moved into permanent housing? What's going on as a ways to transition for them? Also acknowledging that on Tuesday, the mayor declared a state of emergency for folks experiencing homelessness. So just wanting to hear back from the department, what are our action steps, what's taking place, how can we go back to community and communicate back with them, the efforts that the city is taking.
Yeah, great questions. And I know we have director updates as a later portion of the agenda, but happy to take those items here and we can maybe shorten the director's updates portion of our agenda when we get to that point. So roadway, just for a level set for everybody to make sure we're all on the same page, there is a hotel that was purchased by the Denver Housing Authority on Federal called the Roadway Inn. That has been leased by the city for the last 3 years during COVID as a non-congregate shelter. The site was purchased for the purpose of converting to supportive housing as part of the D3 DHA Delivers for Denver agreement that the city has with DHA. In the last couple of years, we've learned a lot about non-congregate shelter and its value in our overall ecosystem. The DHA has learned that that site has barriers to being developed as supportive housing. So they have made the decision to evaluate the next steps towards the sale of that property to reinvest the proceeds to help support their pipeline of supportive housing under that agreement. As such, our agreement ends with DHA to lease that property at the end of August. So we've been planning for the last couple of months with the Salvation Army and the gathering place for our operators at that site to connect guests at that site to plans beyond the end of our lease. What's really important about these kinds of closures is that we've learned a lot over the last 4 months that we've been doing this about how to leverage and connect people to resources for housing beyond their stay at a shelter. And so already with the supportive managers, we have around 75% of the guests that have already been identified to a housing exit towards the next step beyond the August timeframe. Some of those individuals may need a bridge support while they get connected to that housing, but that's exciting to see that number growing every week. So we have several weeks before the end of August where we'll be continuing to work to connect people to an exit strategy, hopefully housing to the extent possible. But we're also working to bring on additional non-congregate shelter this fall to really enhance the presence of non-congregate shelter in our system as much as possible. But overall, working to get guests connected to the extent possible to housing exits as part of this mission. Yeah, any questions on that?
Is there any kind of plans for providing another type of safe shelter, non-congregate or congregate for LGBT people?
Yeah, so we have a budget in our 2023 resources for the expansion of non-congregate shelter. And I think what we've recognized from the use of the roadway over the last couple of years is really the value of that for non-binary individuals and other LGBTQ plus, but also for couples, for caregiver households, for households with pets, others who might not be as well served by a congregate shelter environment. So that would be the goal of expanding non-congregate shelters, that we make more of those spaces available for all those who need it, which includes LGBTQ plus. This site has been unique because it has been a very focused non-congregate option. And so we intend to serve the populations that have been served at Roadway at a broader non-congregate setting, but also other households that may need a non-congregate shelter intervention.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, my computer battery just died. This is Sabrina. I just wanted to give a quick update that we actually are up to 89% who have a housing solution now at Roadway. We just went up the other day, sorry, Laura. So there are actually only 7 individuals remaining now who still need to find something in the next month. Those are the days.
Anybody else in the room that we
I'll
can't
just try
see
to
online have?
State of emergency, and I'll maybe take this moment to give that director update here so that we can carve some time off on our agenda. A lot has happened in the intervening weeks since we all last met. I think the last time we met, we knew that we had a decision on Mayor-elect at that time, Johnston, who's now Mayor Johnston. And as you heard in the campaign trail, for those of you who are watching that, Homelessness and housing was a key priority for the mayor during the campaign and has been a very early and quick priority with announcements this week to declare a state of emergency, under that state of emergency, activate the city's emergency operations center, and to set a goal of bringing 1,000 individuals who are currently experiencing unsheltered homelessness indoors. So we expect the emergency operations center to be active starting next week. I will make sure, I'll just do one more.
Yeah.
Video. I'll make sure that we keep you all informed as we've been doing transition updates. We'll try and keep you all informed on what that looks like. I think there's some conversation about what the structure or length of the EOC activation looks like, but several of us around the table will be heading down and do a bunker and putting our vests back on. Our very flattering vests that you've seen us wear over the last couple of years to help support. Certainly, Host is directly impacted by this more so than other agencies because of the work that we do every day and its intersection with the EOC. But this also brings additional city resources from personnel and other agencies to support these efforts. And we'll be working through what additional financial or other resources may come to support this effort as well. Laura, we've got, oh, sorry, go ahead, Randy, and then we have a couple of hands up on the.
What and where is the emergency operations center?
So there's a physical space underneath the city and county building that is the city's emergency operations center. So it is literally a bunker underneath the city
Oh,
building.
wow.
So, you know, we get used to not having any sunlight or windows or anything when we're down there. Sometimes the emergency operations center can be a virtual replication of the physical structure, but this, we expect to be in that physical structure.
And what do they do?
So it's, there's a model called an incident command structure, which is a structure of support and coordination around emergency response. And so there are various city agencies that staff certain roles within an incident command structure. So there's communication functions, there's emergency response coordinated through logistics or procurement or different operational functions. And so it's really just a structure of coordination, meetings and documentation that helps organize and marshal city resources towards responding to an emergency. Some of those emergencies, which we've worked with you on for the last several years, can be very fast moving and, you know, life-threatening COVID public health emergencies. We've also activated the Emergency Operations Center for migrant sheltering pressures over the last year. So that incident command emergency operations center model will be the structural way that we bring city agencies together.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kristen, do you want to go ahead?
Thanks, Catherine.
Sure. Hi, everybody. This is Kristen Toombs, she, her, hers. I'm with the state of Colorado at the Department of Local Affairs Division of Housing, and I am the director of our Office of Homeless Initiatives. I think everybody knows that, but just to level set and make sure. So I just wanted to say that a couple responses to some things, and then just wanted to give updates. We have a lot of activity going on at the state, so I just wanted to make sure everybody has that information. And do not want to take up the whole time, so I will just kind of rattle off things, but I will put my email in the chat for folks, and I know many of you already have it, so feel free to reach out and we can talk with any of you about any of this further. So, but first want to say with Roadway, we've been looped in, just like with some of the other non-congregate shelters that were closing in the city, as you know, FEMA and the emergency declaration was winding down, and we've been, as Laura was saying, there's a lot that I think we've all learned in how to coordinate with each other, and many thanks to many advocates and partners, providers, and I think we're at the table too for Roadway, so trying to be a partner there. So just appreciate all that everybody's coming together and trying to work on that, and so just wanted to share that. Okay, so as far as what's happening at the state, if folks remember, with the American Rescue Plan Act, there was about $200 million put towards housing and homelessness, and we've been rolling that out. We've been working hard to roll it out. So just to make sure everybody remembers and just where we are, we ended up creating 2 notice of funding availabilities, 2 ways that communities can come and ask for those funds. One is the Transformational Affordable Housing NOFA, or TAG. And that one is for acquiring, developing, renovating. So the actual bricks and mortar. So we are winding that down and have made a lot of awards throughout the state, definitely in the city and county of Denver as well. I do not have those specifics with me. We have it on our website, but I can absolutely tell you what that is looking like. It's a combination of funding of properties specific for homelessness, as well as affordable housing and even home ownership. So it's a full spectrum there, but it's been really exciting. So I wanted folks to know that those funds are getting out there, including in Denver. And then we have the Transformational Homelessness Response one that many folks put applications into both rounds, February 15th and June 15th. We made an initial set of 33 awards, and we are digging in right now, deep in process of making the remaining. So stay tuned for those. The metro area and Front Range has gotten the vast majority of that, and that's where we've seen the vast majority of requests. So the city itself has gone in for applications, so have many other partners or organizations. So we are looking at all of those. I think it's important to note for both of those applications, we had nearly 3 times the amount of ask than we are able to fund. So we have about $240 million, which is unprecedented and sounds like a lot, and we got 3 times the ask. So we're having to make those tough decisions around what can we fund. But stay tuned for that. And again, just wanted to keep folks in the loop on what's happening there. And then we have our Ridgeview campus and the Denver Metro Regional Navigation campuses. So for Ridgeview, that's a site that's state owned, that's in Watkins, Arapahoe County. We are in about 80% of the way through the master plan, which is basically saying, okay, these are current buildings, a current campus. We want to convert it from being a division of youth services school to a transitional housing for adults experiencing homelessness and substance use treatment. How do we convert that space? That's basically what we're doing right now. We've got experts helping us look at everything and seeing how we do that. Then we are actively meeting with stakeholders. So any of you are welcome. If you're interested, we'd love your voice, love your input on programmatically what's needed, what's missing. It's in Arapahoe County, but it's meant for the entire state and absolutely for folks who are in the city and county of Denver. So once we get those programmatic aspects and we have the physical, we're going to marry those 2 together and put out RFPs for how to convert the space physically and then how to bring on the programming. So we're hoping to do all of that over the next year. Again, welcome anybody here for your input, as we want this to be a resource for Denver for sure. The navigation campuses, we can, through statute, award several different campuses throughout the metro region. Applications by local governments are due in 10 days, the end of this month. And we hope to, we will be digging into those in the first couple weeks of August. So stay tuned for that. And then I'll just say in September-ish, we hope we will be doing our annual Emergency Solutions Grant, NOFA, for people to apply. If you think of funding that the state has been giving for outreach, shelter, prevention, rapid rehousing, HMIS, that sort of thing, that is through our ESG annual RFA. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming out in September. For gap funding for developing housing, many partners come to us when they have a project and say, hey, can you give us some money for developing a project? Those applications, we are taking a holiday on those, meaning we are not accepting applications for those in September and October. So folks need to quickly get something in August 1st or wait till November 1st. So part of the reason we're doing that is we've been growing so rapidly, and we know that there have been some pain points around the process of getting awards, getting contracts. So we need to take time to try to improve all of that for all of us, but it's hard to do that and review the applications. So I just want to make sure folks know that. Again, it's specifically if you're trying to build bricks and mortar, and it's for those 2 months, September and October. If folks want to hear more about this, if they want to hear more about the new funds, Proposition 123 that are coming to the state, that bring about $300 million a year to CHAFA and Division of Housing for homeownership, affordable housing, and homelessness. So again, that's Proposition 123. This is an unprecedented, going to be ongoing funding. Very exciting. We are doing summer outreach sessions to tell everybody more about that. We've done 3 of them: Durango, Grand Junction, Pueblo. Next, we have Frisco, Fort Collins, and Denver. I'm pretty sure they're all at wait list point at this point. So we're seeing if we can do something virtual. It can't hurt to get on the wait list. Go on the Housing Colorado website. You'll hear from Housing Colorado about legislation, about policy, about what all this means as a state. Housing Colorado is an advocacy and membership organization. But then you'll also hear from myself and others at Division of Housing about these funds, how you can access them, what it looks like. Most exciting to me is that it also in the afternoon is when we have roundtables where you all get to tell us what you think the funds should go towards, what questions you have. Prop 123 is an opportunity for us to expand on what's working well, to really help expand the number of projects and programs that we serve. But it's also an opportunity for us to look for where we have gaps that we're just not meeting with current resources, for opportunity for innovation. Randy, you mentioning the social housing, I'd love to learn more about that and see if there might be synergy with Prop 123. Who knows? But this is our opportunity to be able to look at some of that. So with funding comes opportunity. So really want to make sure that Denver, that stakeholders here and others know that this is happening, know that we want to hear from you. Again, I think the summer outreach sessions are full, but we might have a virtual one. But if anybody has questions and wants to learn more, again, I'll put my email in the chat and can talk with you more, because I know I've already talked way too much and we have so many other people to talk. So thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Kristen. Those are great updates. Melanie has had her hand up for quite a while. So Melanie, maybe you can go and then we can move on.
And then go back to the room. Nothing too exciting. I figured we were all going around. So I was like, I'm going to throw my hand up and get in the mix.
Great, it's good. And that was all really helpful. So go for it.
And I was trying to think of updates as well that that Kristen probably wouldn't share, and Jamie, I know you're in the room, that you might not share. So I'm assuming you might give a little bit of an update on the regional coordination and progress on the veteran front. But big picture, just we are continuing investments here across the metro region and in Colorado, supporting system level staffing capacity, data infrastructure, racial equity, and lived experience. Priority areas of focus in some of the subregions within the metro area and at the regional level. We also are continuing our work around housing acquisition to make sure that we are preserving affordable units and also making those available to veterans through the coordinated entry process from the by name list. I think we're up somewhere over 300 units now that have been acquired over the last 18 months and have hopefully another property in another part of the metro that's going to be closing in the next couple weeks, fingers crossed, and are very interested to continue, I think, to build that portfolio. And so definitely interested in opportunities for partnership around either additional sites or hotel acquisitions, that type of thing, to keep kind of building those units in the pipeline. And then big picture, just continuing to see very strong engagement and partnership across the state with communities engaging in the Built for Zero initiative and using that framework. Still likely we'll see a couple of announcements around functional zero before the end of this year. So we'll keep folks posted from places out of Colorado. So we'll keep folks posted on that. And then starting to see some progress in our neighboring communities, Northern Colorado and Pikes Peak. So all good things, kind of continuing to partner and just looking forward to continuing to support the work here in Denver.
Thank you. And Mark, last but not least, I see your hand is up.
Thanks, Jenny. All right, all good here. This is for Laura here. With hosts going into emergency mode now around homelessness, what does that do? What impact does that have on your day-to-day operations? And to what extent does that require need for greater capacity? I know that's kind of a bigger question, but just wanted to
Oh, we can't hear you, Laura, on the Zoom. Can someone turn the volume on in the room?
We can't hear Laura.
Laura? Catherine? Laura?
Maybe we should all start waving our hands.
I just texted to.
Same. I just texted someone as well.
Oh, that's good, Kuika. That's
We
Wow.
can't hear you.
we can't hear.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. I'll start again. The question from Mark was just around what does the activation of the EOC mean as far as capacity? I was just acknowledging that when we activate EOC, it is a blunt tool. It is a tool around meeting structure and coordinations, tool around, documentation and support within that infrastructure. But this is a unique activation in that there's so much crossover between hosts' regular work and the work of the EOC. And so I expect that there will be more parity than that, than an activation that's like totally different than our usual work where we're pulled off to do something else. But we recognize, because this activation will impact a number of our team members, including a number of us even here at the table, that there will be some impacts to our work. And so we are working to make sure that we're keeping the core functions of the agency moving even through an activation, like ensuring that you have processes for approvals that don't get bottlenecked by having leaders that are down in an EOC, for example. So we're working to try and support that to the extent possible. And I do expect to keep an eye on whether or not there are additional capacity needs for our agency as we head into the EOC. If there's, and there has been in the past, a practice of, bringing on-call support to the city to support an emergency function, that could be something we may need to see here to keep both the work in the EOC and the work out of EOC functioning for hosts. So all of that is to say more to come as we learn a little bit more about what the shape of EOC looks like over the coming weeks and the parity between it and our other work. For sure. Keeping the core work of host going is a top priority. So know that I will be supporting you all in that. We know that we need to be responsive, and we'll and please know that I'm open to feedback. If you notice something that feels different because we're in an EOC, that you're not getting something as quickly as you would expect, or you have concerns about something, please do reach out to me or any of us if you see anything like that. But know that that support of our regular work will be a key priority for us as we head into EOC.
Great. Laura, do you want to skip other updates and maybe send them out to people since we're a little behind in the agenda, or do you want to keep going?
Can you say that one more time, Jenny?
Oh, do you want to give other director updates right now, or do you want to keep going in the agenda? There we go.
Yeah, I think my proposal, Jenny, would probably be that we send an email with some director updates so that you all can get additional information on happenings and announcements in the host space, but happy to give you all a little bit more time back in the agenda for the other items. So we'll do an email update for other items and the host space.
Great, thank you. So with that, I think we have the a heart team, art team.
A heart is how we
Art.
Good morning, everybody. Emily and I are here to sort of give you a presentation on the AHEART team, the Affordable Housing Review Team, and how we're sort of supporting our projects through the development review process. So Emily, take it away.
Sure. Super quick, just wanted to give you a brief introduction of who's on the team in CPD specifically, because our team consists of people in many agencies. So I'm Emily Collins. I am the city's new expanding housing affordability administrator, but formerly I was also helping to lead the AHEART team. So in my capacity, I'm kind of overseeing implementation of both work groups. So, you know, the new inclusionary housing ordinance that requires on-site income restricted units, but then also our new AHEART team, which Kaylee can explain more about, and she can introduce herself. And then also on our team, we have an AHEART administrator, Angela Thomas Graves, who's not here. And then, as I said, we have staff in other departments, including the fire department, DOTI, transportation, wastewater, SUDP teams, which is sewer use and drainage permitting, forestry, and many others. So we're a big team, but just 2 of us here today to present to you.
And I'm Kaylee Hill. I'm the current senior project administrator for the AHEART team. So I'm the point of contact for every single project that is in our queue right now.
All right, so super brief history. In 2020, the city actually started a pilot program where we accepted 5 affordable housing projects to try to basically permit them as quickly as possible. We learned a lot of lessons from that. And then in 2022, obviously this being a continuing priority for both the mayor and city council, they adopted a budget for 5 years to staff dedicated positions, which is us, the AHEART team. So we're going beyond just the 5 projects into a full-on team of dedicated reviewers. And we do have a memorandum of understanding, again, between all the agencies involved that outlines the expectations of how to run this program. And we don't like to use the word expedited, but basically how we will operate to permit and review as quickly as possible. So super fast history, and we can go to the next slide. So the types of projects that AHEART was created for, very specifically, right? Many of you might have heard of our site development plan, SDP process. You may have heard in the media about all of our backlogs and that sort of thing. So that's what this team was kind of specifically to address, was new construction or renovations around for sale or for rent product, permanent supportive housing. We primarily are looking to support projects that are LIHTC funded. And then we also have capacity for single unit, 2 unit, and ADUs that are permitted through our residential plan review team. So those types of projects very specifically always normally require an SDP. So that's why our team was created with dedicated reviewers within that framework. And then if capacity allows, you know, we work on hotel motel conversions and shelters, things that don't always require a site development plan, but do sometimes get caught in the just overall entitlement conundrum and not sure, you know, how they process those. So we also support those as capacity allows. We can go to the next slide. Just a super quick kind of where are we now? We have about 30 active projects. And then our entire pipeline of things that are either approved or still under review in some capacity. We could expect to see about 4,000 new units come online, give or take, right? So several of those projects are still in the concept planning stage, which is why I say give or take, those may change. But that's kind of where we're at with the AHEART pipeline. And then I'll turn it over to Kaylee to talk about our process.
Oh no, some of our steps are missing. That's okay. So I'm going to give you like the fastest development review overview that you've ever heard in your whole life. But the city of Denver has an entitlement process. Sometimes entitlement means just a building permit, but sometimes entitlement means also concept plan and site development plan, or SDP, which requires a much more involved set of plans, a much more involved review prior to going to building permit. And that concept plan and SDP review are multi-departmental, multi-agency reviews. So we usually have about at least 15 people looking at any one review, but we could have as many as up to 30 different agencies or people looking at these projects. And so sort of my role in the development process is making sure that all of those comments come together and that they're all well coordinated and they're not conflicting. And I sort of help our teams sort of find resolution if we need to, but primarily sort of identify issues in a project as early as possible. Along with this, some projects may also require rezoning. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes we determine that after concept plan. Sometimes we would determine it before. But what's missing from this slide, so it's rezoning, and then we have project concept review, formal site development plan review, zoning permit and permit issuance, building permit review, and then construction inspections and inspections final acceptance. So sort of the meat of what we work on are unfortunately those tiles that are missing. But if a project needs to go through site development plan review, it has to go through a concept plan submittal, and every SDP will result in a building permit and a zoning permit. So let's go to the next slide, please.
We have somebody that has a question. Is
Well,
that okay,
sure.
or do you guys want to wait till the end?
No, go for it.
Yeah, if you could wait till the end.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Either way. Oh, there they are. Okay. There we go. Awesome. Sorry about that. So a typical review in our process. So my team or my portion of the process is only concept plan SDP. We do interact with the building permit also. We're one of the sort of the final releases of the building permit, just to make sure that everything is matching on the SDP and the building permit set from a zoning perspective. But we spend most of our time on concept plan and SDP, as do most of our partner agencies. So our standard review time is for concept plan, it's 3 weeks plus. The +1 is a week for the project coordinators on our team to put all the comments together and get them to the applicant, because sometimes there's a little bit of discussion that may need to be had there. So standard times, 3 weeks plus a week for concept plan, or sorry, excuse me, for a project coordinator. On the AHART team, we're doing that in about 2 weeks, plus the week for coordinator. SDP initial reviews and a standard review timeline is about 4 weeks +1. And then second submittal is 3 weeks +1, SDP third submittal 2 +1, and any other submittals after that would also be 2 +1. For the AHART team, we're doing it in 3 +1 on the initial and 2 +1 on all other submittals. So not only have we sort of shortened the timelines on the AHART team, we are also sort of promising to our customers that we will deliver their reviews either on time or early. So we are not dealing on the AHART team with that sort of 6-week backlog that you guys may have heard of. And that backlog does sort of oscillate. Sometimes it depends on the project coordinator. Sometimes it depends on the time of year. But I would say on average, it's about 6 weeks. So it's this if we're looking at the SDP initial submittal, if it's 4 weeks, it's actually more like 10, unfortunately right now. We can go to the next slide.
I noticed Mark Marshall has his hand up. Mark, do you want to ask a question while we're transitioning?
Oh, it's not a question, but it's a comment here. I had the good fortune of sitting on the mayor's transition team for planning. And I know when you're working in public agency, most of the things you hear are complaints, but to a person, everybody had great things to say about the AHART process and were very impressed with it. And the question became, how can we make everything AHART? So
yeah,
just wanted to pass that along to you, and thanks for the great work.
Sure. We can maybe touch on that at the end, because I think that's sort of a bigger question that we are obviously hearing ourselves too. So we'll come back to that, but thank you. I appreciate that feedback. That's really great. So this slide here, I won't spend much time here, but just to sort of show you like the typical process from start to finish, concept plan all the way through building permit is at least a year right now for most typical projects. This particular project, our Warren Village project, got through SDP and building permit in about 9 months. So we knocked off about 3 months there. And on the sort of the chart on the right, you'll see these little brackets. The brackets are indicating the amount of time that the project spent with the applicant between reviews with the city. The green bars are city review. And then if you see that sort of middle purple bar, that's how long the applicant expected the review to take. So you can see we sort of hit the review, we got them out on time, we got them out early. But just as sort of a note here, that time between reviews is really important because this project only spent 11 weeks with the city. So that's about 3 months. The other 6 months of the process was the amount of time that the applicant had their plans in their hands between reviews. So I think it's important to note that the city can move as fast as they want, but there's still the added variable of how long it takes the applicant to resolve the comments and sort of understand what needs to happen next. Next slide, please.
So really quick, we're just going to tell you how AHART is very specifically supporting projects. So we'll go to the next slide. So we have dedicated staff, which I mentioned. We have somewhere between 7 and 12 positions that are either staffed and like funded and staffed, or that we're going to be hiring for. So again, that includes all of our building department reviewing disciplines, architectural, structural, electrical, plumbing, right? That whole group. We have the site development plan team. So that's Kaylee and the project coordinator. We have zoning reviewer, wastewater, transportation, forestry, survey, right? So we've got kind of the core city reviewers all staffed and dedicated. And then in the future, we're going to also have inspectors. So that's going to really help things move along, but we're hiring as we speak. So dedicated staff is a big one. The next slide, capacity managed queue. And this is honestly one of the keys to how do you replicate this and why is it working? Because we have a capacity managed queue. We only accept about 30 projects. We found that that's kind of the limit of how we can manage this really enhanced coordination effort where we spend a lot more time with the applicants. Way more meetings than you would normally be able to handle. Just as a comparison, right? So Kaylee has 30 projects on her queue. Most of our other city project coordinators have about 80 to 100. And so when we think about the number of hours that we're spending doing thorough proactive reviews, meeting with applicants, doing resolution meetings, coordinating things so that they can talk to the reviewers so that upon resubmittal, they have completely addressed a comment and not just guessing if they addressed it, takes a lot of time. So this is a huge element to why we're being so successful. Next slide is our application and eligibility requirements. So go to the next slide because this is actually what's online. And so you can reference this. We focus on 100% affordable projects, and we've seen a huge demand. So we use this list of criteria to determine when multiple applications come in, which ones we should accept if we have capacity within that 30 project kind of list. So these are not weighted or prioritized in any particular order, so that's really important to note. But they include a CHAFA funded project, something that Host has funded, anything by the Denver Housing Authority. So those are the bulk of what we do, honestly. And then below that, we have other criteria, which include any deed restricted ADU that would be used for affordable housing. So we're seeing a lot of habitat projects that fall into that bucket. Projects that are just deed restricted by covenant or any other legally enforceable method, or like a nonprofit developer. Any other project that's at least 20% of the units earning 80% AMI. So that's a little bit above the EHA requirements. So that is why, we'll consider you if you're meeting that threshold. And then projects that choose to comply with the enhanced on-site build requirements for EHA. But again, to be quite transparent with you, we have not seen very many projects come to us under those last two bullets. And when they have come to us, we unfortunately have had to turn them away because we have tenfold supply and demand for the projects that are CHAFA funded, Host funded, et cetera. So we're not seeing a huge demand for the other ones, but this is how we manage our queue and how we determine, based on your project, should we accept you? We're also asking about development schedule. We're asking if the projects have anything unique about them, like do they include community benefits like food pantries, mental health services, childcare, et cetera, because that might also distinguish between two projects that are otherwise very similar. So that's how we accept projects. We can go to the next slide.
So as I mentioned, we also are sort of guaranteeing our teams on time or early reviews. Obviously, that's subject to if every project is in at once, like it is right now, trying to get to that August 1st CHAFA deadline, which we will meet, don't worry. But on time and early reviews is really helpful for our customers because it allows them to predictably, to an extent, manage their project schedule. So if they know that a review is only going to take 3 weeks, then they know that it'll only be with the city 3 weeks. It's not going to be with the city for maybe 3 weeks plus however many backlog weeks. AHART is not subject to the backlog right now. Next slide, please. close coordination with the project's development schedule. So Emily alluded to this. This is something that we ask for from a team before we even sort of evaluate them to let them into AHART. And the reason for that is from a capacity standpoint, we want to make sure that not every single project is trying to get out all at the same time, because we would not be able to support that. But also so we can give these teams advice on whether or not their schedule actually makes sense for the entire entitlement process. So we have teams come in and sometimes say, we want to be through concept plan, SDP, and building permit in 6 months. And unfortunately, we have to say, we can't do that, because while AHART is implementing a bunch of different sort of efficiencies, every project is still subject to the same steps and the same regulations. We're not waiving zoning requirements or building code requirements or anything like that. We're just trying to provide a more efficient and effective way to sort of navigate the process. And it's really important for us to see the project's development schedule and what they think it should be, or what they need at the end of the day, also for financial closing, to make sure that we can actually get them there in the amount of time that we need for it to take, but also meet their goals in terms of when they have to be signing papers to get money out the door, or building permits, or TCOs eventually when we have our inspectors on board. Next slide, please. We're also doing proactive identification, resolution of issues. This is not to say that the other project coordinators on our team are not doing this, but one of the things we are also sort of asking our applicants is to be sort of thinking ahead and more detailed than maybe they would be at concept plan, so that we can tell them if their project is going to work or not much more clearly and much earlier in our reviews. So do you actually have enough sewer capacity to build this project? Can you build what you want to build? Do you need a rezoning? Do you need to go to BOA? Is this in a design advisory board district? Do you need to rebuild a street? Do you need to dedicate a street? All of those things that when we have more detail sooner, we can sort of get ahead of it all. And this leads directly back into their development schedule. So we're just trying to help teams not get caught in sort of the cog of waiting and sitting in somebody's email, trying to actually get meetings on the boards and get problems sort of solved. That's not to say, again, that we're waiving requirements. We're just trying to work through these problems a little more efficiently. Next slide, please. And then as a part of that, we're also trying to put more materials in place for our applicants. One of the other things that isn't included here is we don't really have a development flow chart anywhere on our site that our applicants, any applicant, can access. And so our team is working to get something like that published for everybody right now, so that you can actually see the steps of the development process and how they feed into each other, because most of our process is simultaneous and linear. So you need approval here to go to the next step, but you also need approval from DOTI, wastewater, DOTI transportation, right of way, to be able to move from that center step to the next step. So we're trying to find a way to tell people about that more clearly as well. But another thing we're doing is this progress tracker, where based on a project's actual development schedule that they've given to us, we give them a list of all of the applications that they need to complete, which they will already have from concept plan. And we basically tell them whether or not they're on track to actually meet their own goals. So this isn't a report card, but it is a way for us to just say, hey, you haven't started your right-of-way dedication and you want to be out of this process in 3 months, but that process takes 6 months. So it's sort of a temperature reading on the project, and honestly, the project management of the project, to sort of communicate how well the project is moving forward and where they need to be focusing their attention. Because sometimes people focus so much on the building permit that they forget about all the stuff that happens before it. So this is just a tool that we've put together to help our teams. Next slide, please.
So I think to the core of why we're meeting with you and Mark's question, right? Like, what's next? How do we replicate this? You know, we look forward to continued education of our applicant teams, as well as partner agencies. Right now, we're working on setting up a meet and greet with all of our potential and repeat kind of customers, so that we can introduce them to the team, establish that connection, relationship building, give them some background on the process and requirements and the expectations, right? If they're accepted into the program, they have expectations to meet, as well as the city. And so we're going to go over all of that. Like I mentioned before, the dedicated inspectors, which we've heard from many teams will be, you know, greatly appreciative and keep their construction schedule on track. And then obviously with the lens of Prop 123 and the mayor's new emergency declaration, I know the CPD leadership team is already thinking about how to respond to that. And so we'll definitely be involved in all of those areas.
And I guess, Mark, to your point, it's tough to know how to take these things and sort of replicate it to everybody else on our team because of the capacity, primarily, I think, because of the capacity managed queue piece of it, because everyone on our team is working just as hard as we are to try and help our teams get through. It's just that they don't have the same amount of time to be able to do that. And, you know, I think that is sort of the biggest piece of success, and maybe over communicating all of the steps and really sort of being coaches to these teams to get them through the process is, I think, where we've seen a lot of the success with the AHRT team.
And I think our next slide is just the question slide.
Yeah.
So happy to answer any questions.
I think for the sake of time today, I think we're going to share your emails
Perfect.
with folks. They can follow up with questions directly. But thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you taking time out of your days and sharing all of this information.
Well, we
Welcome.
appreciate being invited. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, should we move on to Polly and the 2024 action plan?
Can you hear me? I think you can hear me. Okay.
Yes. Can you hear us?
Trusting that you can hear me. I'm unmuted on my computer, so, and I'm great. All right, everyone, I am gonna go fast so that we can get through these pieces, but wanna make sure I can see both things. Right, so first up, talking about the 2024 annual action plan. We are already drafting it. As we talked about last time, we had a community survey and wanted to remind folks what we heard from stakeholders and community. And the top 3 goals from the 5-year strategic plan that they identified as, that community and stakeholders identified as the most important for hosts to address were address unsheltered homelessness, expand access to affordable housing opportunities, and expand pathways to successful housing for people experiencing homelessness. Next up, what we heard from you at that meeting was an intentional focus on preventing evictions, really focusing on those regional approaches through policy and legislative approaches, and then identifying, developing a program that works with property owners on expiring covenants. And also wanted to touch base on the 2024 City Council priorities. City Council gets together every year and kind of goes through a list of priorities that they would like to focus on, that they would like the mayor's office to focus on. They put together a letter and send that on to the mayor. For their 2024 priorities, they really wanted to focus on housing and homelessness, and within those, access to supportive services, expanding funding and explore annual sources of revenue for housing stability programs, maintain at a minimum funding for permanent housing addressing homelessness, and then expanding a portion of investments going into land purchases and housing outcomes. And there's some other priorities, of course, that City Council had outside of housing and homelessness that you can see there. So these slides, so obviously we have, I think, in our 2023 action plan, we have 154 strategies that we're reporting on that go into our work. So for 2024, we have a slightly smaller number of public priorities that we really, that drive towards those goals that I talked about in the first slide. And the goals that we're talking about for each of these are the strategies that really promote those goals that we're really going to be focusing on in 2024. So for our homelessness resolution pillar, we'll go pillar by pillar. But for our homelessness resolution pillar, goal 1, address unsheltered homelessness. And that first bullet under there is a full implementation of encampment resolution to better meet the needs of residents experiencing homelessness through housing and a range of safe temporary options, including micro-communities, which include hotels, motels, tiny homes, and others. So that's kind of our big goal. It's part of the emergency declaration. So that's one of our going to be focusing on that now, of course, in 2023, but we'll really continue to focus on that through 2024. Goal 2, expand pathways to successful rehousing. We'll expand support for supportive housing pipeline by working with partners and maximizing effectiveness of housing choice vouchers. And then goal 4, improve homelessness resolution systems for families. We're really, for that, going to focus on maximizing effectiveness of use of housing choice vouchers by partnering with the Denver Housing Authority on the strategic use of homelessness preference. Next up is our housing opportunity pillar. Goal 1 in that pillar is to expand access to affordable housing opportunities. And our numbers for this year is that we're going to develop 1,300 units and we're going to preserve 375 homes through investment in the affordable housing pipeline. We'll also be doing strategic acquisitions of hotels, and then really focusing on that effective implementation of the mandatory affordable housing ordinance. We'll also, as we just had a great presentation from the AHEART team, we'll continue to work on that implementation and making sure we're partnering really well with that AHEART team to review all of our affordable housing projects. Goal 2 is to preserve existing affordable housing. We are this year as well, but going into next year, updating the preservation ordinance to align with long-term affordability goals and the priorities for use of preservation funds. So updating that ordinance, last time that ordinance was updated, I believe was 2018. So looking at things like minimum affordability, better ways to implement the right of first refusal, kind of those pieces there. And then goal 3, expand home ownership opportunities. We will expand pathways to home ownership by continuing to invest ARPA funds as available to scale up down payment assistance programs for households impacted by historic practices like redlining. Our Metro DPA SE program, our Metro Down Payment Assistance Social Equity Program, was relaunched and has been a really great success. So we'll see if we continue to have funds going into 2024 for that. But we have been really excited about that rollout for the Metro DPA SE program. Next up is housing stability. So the first goal there is to help households remain in their home and neighborhood of choice. This first bullet point really aligns with some city council priorities as well, which is to explore and identify possible funding sources for housing stability to increase the levels of support that can be provided beyond emergency and pandemic recovery. We're also going to work with Denver Public Schools and the Denver Office of Children's Affairs to develop communication strategies and referral systems for programs that support housing stabilization for families with children. And our goal 2 there is reduce evictions. So we're going to continue to provide legal counsel and eviction proceedings for at least 2,000 households annually and increase the proportion of low and moderate income households facing eviction who have legal representation. And last but not least is our operations pillar. Our operations pillar works across all of the pillars to support this work to make sure that we can execute and continue to have successful outcomes. The slide is small. I'm sorry. I'm even having a hard time reading it. I think I'm getting old. Goal 1, expanding communications and community engagement. We're going to prioritize language access and culturally appropriate messaging. And we're also developing and implementing engagement strategies that go beyond city council and RNOs to focus on two-way communication with more intentional listening. Goal 2 there is about our procurement, contracting, and financial processes. We will be updating host business practices to take advantage of expanded contracting and invoice processing, and tracking for our partners. We're undergoing a very large database. Revitalization is a word. So we'll be working to implement that for our partners to ease our tracking. Goal 3 is really focused on deepening our data infrastructure. And for that, we're going to be planning additional data collection and analysis efforts, such as housing needs analysis to better inform host work and understanding of community needs. And then goal 4 is focused on that citywide and regional approaches with policy and legislative efforts. And we'll be utilizing the new host database to complete the implementation of the prioritization policy, which will go into effect on July 1st, 2024. We have started working on drafting the rules and regs for that. And we'll continue to do some, we have done a lot of stakeholder engagement around that data system, and we'll continue to do more data with the rules and regs. And I flew through that. We have 5 minutes left. But if we have questions or anything else that we want to close on, happy to take them. Yeah, Randy.
You'll all get tired of me bringing this up. But something I didn't see in there that I brought up in the past is increasing a focus on providing accessible, affordable housing. I have to be able to take this stuff back to my community and sell it. And when they look, I had to talk to Greta last year because there were no mentions in there at all about accessibility. So they went back and changed it, but I'm hoping to be able to see something in here also about increasing accessible, affordable housing.
I can say that the database that we're building to host all affordable housing and also implement the prioritization policy, there are going to be ways to identify accessible units more easily than it currently is, but definitely take the feedback, and we'll take that back as we continue to develop the 2024 action plan.
Yeah, I'm talking about more policy level.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other comments from our folks on Zoom? Not seeing any hands. Okay, if not, if you just please refer to the screen, our next meeting, September 15th, 2023, and are we talking about the action plan again? Yeah, okay.
We should be talking about the mayor's budget.
Okay.
Announcements by then.
Yep, budget announcements. And draft action plan next time. Okay, thank you, everybody. Sorry for all the technical difficulties today. Thanks for hanging in there, and we'll see you guys all in September.
Thank you.
Thank you.